Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of PodSaveChocolate. My name is Clay Gordon, and I'm your host. Today, we are going to be talking about the AVPA, the Agency for the Valorization of Agricultural Products, the Agence Valorisation de Produits Agricoles. Excuse me for not getting the French quite right. And I am joined by two guests today. I am joined with, both Philippe Juglar and Jose Lamarck,
Yes.
who are the president and vice president of the AVPA, respectively. And I want to thank you very much for joining me today. But before we begin, a real quick thank you to everyone who is a supporter of the Chocolate Life. This episode of PodSaveChocolate, like every episode, is sponsored by the members of the Chocolate Life. And here is the homepage. You can go to the homepage, click on the join button, and become a member. This is the post for today's episode, and you can go there and follow along. Now, if you'd like, what you can do is you can watch us on the screen, and then you can scan the QR code, and you can follow along watching us on the screen, and you can go take a look at what's going on during the course of the episode. I also want to point out that you can go into the live chat on YouTube or LinkedIn, Facebook comments, and let us know where in the world you are connecting from. And if you have a question about today's topic, put it into the comments and we'll get it up on screen. And with that, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me here today. I know it's late in Paris.
Well, thank you for your invitation. It's not that late in Paris. We can still be at work.
Yes, I am glad to hear that. And Jose, I understand that while you have been associated with the AVPA for many years, you just recently became the vice president. So we're going to be talking mostly about what the AVPA is, how it's different from other competitions around the world, and then about the chocolates competition. But just before we got on air, Jose, we wanted to start a conversation about the cocoa market and how cocoa might be different from chocolate, as well as the other competitions that the AVPA runs, which include coffee and tea and oils. So, Jose, let's have this conversation right now about cocoa and awards for cocoa and what's going on right now, because I think that would be a good place to start what's going on.
We have to face a reality. The reality is the cocoa market now is a very, very high market, and you have two kind of consumers in the world. And in Europe, first, speak about Europe. The first kind of consumers, they like what we call a cheapy chocolate, close to the English taste with lots of sugar and less of cocoa. And the other type of consumers, they want a real chocolate, means with a certain percentage of cocoa than sugar. This is very important now in France, and you have many producers in France who are producing this very high quality chocolate, because consumers now understand that chocolate is not only the chocolate for having fun, maybe for children, things like that. They want to share. It can be compared with wine, with one specialist and one consumers who like wine. They want to share a good time with a glass of wine. It's the same thing with the cocoa. The same thing, the same market, the same consumers. They want to share a good time, couple of friends, with a piece of chocolate. They're very, very good piece of chocolate with 70% of cacao or 76, 75. It's not the thing that to say that some cocoas are not available for tasting, but they are very now narrow to try to find the best way to have good taste and have fun together, sharing a good part of chocolate. This is the reality of market today.
Great. So I understand. I have been a communicator around chocolate and cocoa for more than 25 years now, and I've seen prices go up and prices go down, not only on the cocoa side but also on the chocolate side, and have been working with the largest chocolate companies in the world. Barry Callebaut has invited me to some of their some of their international or global launch events. But I also work with very, very small chocolate makers and very small cocoa growers. And so I understand that the requirements for those markets and the customers are very, very different. But Philippe, let's go talk about the AVPA, why it is what it is, and what makes it different from other competitions in the world, not just in cocoa, not just in chocolate, but in the other areas in which you work.
Well, we have to go back to my personal history. I have been a coffee trader for years. And as a coffee trader, I was selling containers of coffee. And we were speaking of quality, but it was quite a theoretical discussions. And around the year 2000, with my friend Jean-Emmanuel Jourde, we decided to create AVPA as to give an opportunity for the producer of excellent product, excellent commodities, which is no more a commodity, but a good thing to transform, to give them the opportunity to be recognized at an international level. And so we decided to settle to mount AVPA and to have this competition for coffee, for edible oils, for chocolate, and for teas, with one permanent idea, which was to get as much as possible the grower to be informed of the quality of the product. So we decided to just receive products which will be transformed in the country where the commodity was cropped. So we have chocolate elaborated in countries where you produce cocoa. We have chocolate roasted in countries where they produce green coffee, which is part of our culture in south of Europe. I'm thinking of Italy and France mainly. If we can get wines of this quality, cheese of this quality, it's because the produce is transformed by or alongside the grower, the peasant, which gives at last the opportunity for him to taste his product. When you produce coffee as a commodity or cocoa as a commodity, well, you have some parameters, physical and chemical parameters, which will be checked by the international trader, but nobody is speaking of taste. If you drink your field, you have a completely different thinking and understanding of what you are doing. That's the first difference for the AVPA competition. The second difference is that we are very French, as a matter of fact, and we enter this new world of AVPA competition with our French culture. In France, we never compare wine from Bordeaux with a wine from Côte du Rhône. In our culture, we ask each region to produce the best it can do. And so when we compare Bordeaux, we will compare Bordeaux against other Bordeaux, not against other wines. And we try to do the same with our products, which means we are looking for not regions, but family of taste. And for instance, we'll try to compare coffees, chocolate, oils of similar organoleptic definition to compare what can be compared. Third difference, and that's a bit surprising for our foreign friends, we insist to have a jury manned with persons who speak French, who know the French culture. Why? two main reasons. First, one of the pleasure of gastronomy is to speak about gastronomy, to exchange with your friends about what you have in your mouth. And it's very difficult to do it in your mother language. It's nearly impossible to do it in a foreign language. That's the first point. The second point is that our cultural reference is not at all the same. Years ago, we did The Nose of the Coffee, which is a fantastic book which describes the different aromas of coffee. But when you say grilled or smoke to an American or to a European, it's not at all the same. We have not the same definition of what is burnt. What is burnt for a French is just good for an American. I don't know who is right, who is wrong, but like that. Same when you speak of aromas of flowers. If you discuss with a gastronome from Latin America, his references will be mango, will be banana, we have it, but will be tropical fruits, when in Europe we'll speak of European fruits. So three main differences to compare what is comparable, to have French-minded jury, and so we cannot pretend to an international test, because we don't believe there is an international test. You have national cultures, and it's exactly like in literature. You ask a writer not to write an international novel, but to write a very American novel, and that will be a very African novel. And because being very African, very American, or very French, it will be universal.
That's a very, very interesting point. I think that sometimes when you try to go too broad, it becomes very, very specific. But if you can become very, very specific, or if you are very specific and tap into something which might be universal, or might be more accessible, which is probably a better way to think about it, across cultures. I mean, there's a lot for me to say there, for me to think about this. So about, flavor references, if there's a truism, if you've never tasted something, you can't refer to it. And so I go to Brazil and I say, oh my gosh, like my favorite fruit in the world now is jabuticaba, and a fresh jabuticaba, and people go, what's that? And then you try to explain to them what jabuticaba is. It's impossible to do it because they've never tasted it. But I think that also the thing that's important, and again, one of the things that for me is the heart of what it is that you're doing, as opposed to what the AVPA is doing, as opposed to other competitions is doing, is this notion of particularity, that what you're doing is, this is a producing country. Right?
Yeah.
And one of the challenges, one of the things I've noticed in analyzing competitions is that often the winner of a competition, say, for example, of a chocolate maker in Ecuador, is that the founder of the company has spent a lot of time in foreign countries and then understands what the market wants. And so while you may be representing the food culture of a particular country, so the food culture of Nigeria is going to be very different from the food culture of Thailand. And so you want to reflect that uniqueness of that food culture. But at the same time, what you're doing is you're saying, this is a product whose taste and texture and other characteristics are ones that we as French recognize as having value, right? This is, not only is it, we think it's good, right? Not just, oh, this is good for the local market. So it's very, very different. I'm not comparing in the same way as I'm doing, here is a cocoa bean which is produced in Ghana, transformed in Ghana, with a maker in the United States who brings Ghanaian beans and transforms it in the United States. Very, very different kind of approach. And you do this for chocolate.
Yeah.
You do this for coffee. You do this for tea. You do this for edible oils as well, which I think is interesting. And for me, there aren't a whole lot of protected designation of origins. We don't have the AOC or the DOC as much here in the United States. But when I think of very, very famous denominación, right, like Champagne or for various cheeses and things like that, this is also very much, at the heart of the way French, particularly, and Europe and Italians just celebrate food culture. But so let's talk about some of the other things which I think are unusual. One thing that you do is that you require everybody who wants to enter into one of your competitions become a member of AVPA. So, Jose, why is that a requirement? Right? Why is it a requirement that a person who entered the competition be a member of the organization?
You have by yourself. It's a personal engagement to be in AVPA. Let me explain you something very simple. If we speak about chocolate, you have an international taste of flavor for chocolate. It means the chocolate bar. A chocolate bar is made for the world, the same taste, the same flavor. Our chocolate is not for international taste of flavor. It has its own taste, its own flavor, because it's not done by a big company or world company. It's done by a national, a regional company. And that's very important for me and for us, that producers will get involved in AVPA to present their product, which is totally different from, I tell you, about the product of an international company. I told you it's a provincial, national company that makes something different. And you find it in chocolate, in olive oil, in coffee, for coffee, or for tea. Is not to be in this kind of globalization flavor of taste. This is not a globalization. It's just to recognize and to put first the product, and the product is very important, and that's why the customers, the consumers, they need maybe in the European market or French market, they need the big difference of a product. As Philippe told you about vin de Bordeaux, Bordeaux wine, or Bordeaux from Côte du Rhône, or Bordeaux from Italy, wine from Italy, these kind of wines are different. They can be compared. And that's why the producers get involved in a VPA, because for this kind of things, they want to be compared, but they want to be compared by quality. And quality is the first step for a VPA. I did it.
May I add?
Please, Philippe.
Yes.
If I can, really quickly. So, Jose, you articulated an important value statement of the organization, right? But Philippe, from an organizational perspective, right, and you're not just the president, but one of the founders, or if not the founder. I mean, this is really unusual. I mean, for example, there is an awards program called the Academy of Chocolate out of the UK, but they do not require people to become a member of the Academy of Chocolate in order to enter their awards. So why is it important to AVPA that the people who enter your competition become members of the competition?
Because
or members of the organization?
Yeah, because you have to know who is the owner of the farm. I mean, what is the aim of our competition? Who are the boss of AVPA? The producer themselves. Have no personal profit. We have no brand. We have nothing to sell, but to be a tool useful for the growers. And so the growers, being members of the association, are part of the General Assembly, who decides who will be how will be the administration, the policy of the association. So for us, it's important to know that our only objective is to be useful for the producer of exceptional products. And I learned that lesson working years ago with an organization in Colombia, the Coffee Federation, where were admitted in the organization only the coffee growers, not coffee traders, not coffee sellers, just coffee growers. Because the way you can see the market and the economic view of the market when you are a grower is completely different of the one you may have as a trader or as a broker. It's not a question of good faith, bad faith or not. But when you are a grower, you are obliged to think about 5 years ahead, the time to transform your plantation in a profitable business, profitable if the market allows it. So we think that the growers are really the coffee growers, the cocoa growers, the tea producer are must be the persons who will profit of our work in the world.
Understand. So I'm going to take a quick break because we're about a third of the way, and I understand, Philippe, you need to leave early. So I want to make sure we cover things for there. And Jose, thank you for joining us to make sure that we have some continuity here. But what I want to do is I want to share with everybody the homepage of the AVPA website today. That's the homepage of the AVPA website. And you can click on the navigation. Let me see if I can find my cursor here. Click on the contest and click on chocolates processed at origin. And here is the page for the chocolates processed at origin. And we've got a couple of things. Number one is you're getting ready for your 2026 competition. So let's talk a little bit about that. But importantly, what I'm going to say, I'm going to just change this really quickly, right? If you're a chocolate maker and you are in a producing country and you have a direct connection with your farmers, you may be the farmer and you're producing chocolate, and you are interested in getting your work being seen by internationally known judges and being presented on the international stage, right? As a chocolate maker in a producing country, you have an organization that is set up entirely differently from the Academy of Chocolate and the International Chocolate Awards, right? That you should consider, I think you should consider entering your product into the AVP Awards program, because you will get a very, very different kind of consideration than you will from the other awards programs. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here today. I think it's a fact. I've been supporting the competition for 3 or 4 years now through these programs. And it's why I wanted to do this today. And I wanted to introduce everybody to 2 of the people who were responsible for making it work. But also, you can go to this page. It is linked to in the post for today's episode. So you can go here directly. But you do have the rules for entering the competition. So if we can, Philippe, Jose, what are some of the things that are unusual about the way you enter your product into the awards program? And by the way, if no matter where in the world you're listening to today, if you have a question for me or Philippe or Jose, put it into the comments. I'll get it up on the screen. We'll do our best to answer the question during the episode. So what do people really need to know about entering the competition?
I think that personally, I'm sorry, Philippe, but I want to have a small talk, which is very important for AVPA, is to highlight the producer and the product for the consumers. The highlighting of the producer, the highlighting of the product is just for the AVPA directly to the consumer. And when a producer is highlighted with this product, it's very important, I think, in not only in our culture, but the culture of the consumers, because they know a product, very important for them, and they know the producer. You know, it's not the same thing that a chocolate I told you before from a big company. It's totally different. And this is to face reality to the consumer, is truth.
Well, one other thing that I can say about the craft chocolate movement, which was started in the United States, is that this is in chocolate, so this is in the late 1990s, we see for the first time an interest in highlighting, hey, my name is John, I actually make the chocolate, right, that you're putting in your mouth. And I buy my beans from, Jose in the Dominican Republic, or Fernando who's down in Ecuador. So you make those connections. For us here in the United States, outside of maybe the California wine region or other kinds of foods, we haven't had that connection. We don't have that connection. While it's very much more common, certainly in France, than it is here. But Philippe, if you can, what are some of the things that people need to know about actually entering the competition?
Well,
that might be different from another competition.
Yeah. Why to enter the competition? First, we try to get an economic and reasonable price. You just have to invest in sending some samples and entering in the association. So the investment is.
So if I can just interrupt very, very briefly, and I just want to say thanks to Throttle Tales, who says it's informative. Thank you very much. But I want to point it out is that if I am a member of the association, if I wanted to, which is a requirement, if I wanted to make one entry or two entries, there's no additional price per entry. Is that correct?
And better than that. For instance, in Hawaii, you have a producer who are growing and transforming coffee, chocolate, and teas. And there is just one entry in the association. And they send their product to the tea competition, to the coffee competition, or to the chocolate competition. So there is one entry per company, and you can send as many samples as you wish. That's the first point. The second point that, well, obviously, if you are awarded a medal, it's good to come to Paris and to be at the Salon du Chocolat and to get your medal live, because it will give you beautiful picture you can use in your communication. So you are kindly invited in case of success. But in case of success, you are ready to invest, because a medal is valuable.
There's never a bad reason to come to Paris, in my experience.
And we are waiting for you, Clay.
Of course.
I unfortunately I haven't been able to travel to the salon. I think the last time was in 2018 before the first chocolate awards, and so no, I'm looking forward to making the trip.
Okay, so we meet next week, I hope. So it's an affordable competition. It's a fair competition. The fairness of our competition was demonstrated by our Italian friends for olive oils. We have a lot of olive oils coming from Italy. And I asked some of them who became friends years after years, but why do you come to Paris to be judged? Well, you are a fair competition, Philippe. And we are very proud of that. They think, and they are right to think, that in the AVPA competition, which is completely anonymous, we are just comparing taste, qualities, and not brands and countries. And third, to get it's a competition of ready to use product, ready to consume produce. So if you get an AVPA award, you can use it on your packaging and inform your clients that you are winner in the Paris AVPA competition. Paris is more important than AVPA, I must say, because Paris is still recognized as a gourmet capital. And I can tell you some stories of Mexican coffee producer or Ecuadorian chocolate producer who are proudly using their award medal, even to sell cocoa beans or coffee beans.
I'm sure. So if I can, it's a really interesting question. So Throttle Tales 450 asked me an interesting question. So he said, AVPA attracts entries from around the world. Have you noticed any emerging regions or interesting trends in the origins of chocolate?
Lot. What is interesting is that the mood for quality and for specialty chocolate and for bean to bar is not only in limited countries, but all over the world. This very morning, I was with producer from Ivory Coast. And now in Ivory Coast, they don't only think of mass producing, but also of quality. So I would say that the first point is that is a generalization of a mind of quality all over the world. The second point, and we have it also with coffee, is that countries where the product are processed become more and more markets for their own for the producer. The first market in the world for Brazilian coffee is Brazil, and this changed completely the map of the world consumption. And so you have exactly the same with chocolate. Now you eat more and more chocolate. For instance, in Latin America, Latin America is not traditionally countries. There are not countries where you eat chocolate. You drink chocolate in Latin America, and now slowly but constantly, chocolate is becoming part of the national food, and chocolate bars are more and more manufactured in their home country of cocoa.
So if I can jump in really quickly, Throttle Tales. So if you go to the AVPA website and you look at the chocolate competition, this is the list of winners for the 5th annual competition for 2025.
Yeah.
And you can go and you can find the winners for each one of these competitions. If you search around the website, it's not as obvious as I think it should be, but you can find all of the winners. And I have downloaded all of these PDFs. And so one of the things that I have done, Throttle Tail, is I have put all of this information into spreadsheets. And I only have the 2024 and 2025 in this particular example. But what I can do is, using database terms called normalize and regularize, what I can do is I can have a year that they won. I know how many winners there were in total. I have the company names, the brand names, the product names. If the percentage of cocoa is mentioned, I can pull out the percentage of cocoa and put it into a column. I can have the producing country, the category which is used, and the medal that they've won. And one of the things that I can tell you is that compared with other competitions, AVPA has been very consistent about both their categories and what they call them, and the medals and what they call them. This makes comparison very easy. So what I can do, again, Throttle Tails, is I can put all of the competitions into one spreadsheet. And now what I can do is I can start talking about which country won the most awards and which country won the most golds. And then I can start looking at saying, because we have the product names, we can start looking for our flavors mentioned. And we pulling things, doing some analysis. But one of the things I'm also doing is I'm doing this also for the International Chocolate Awards, the Academy of Chocolate Awards, the Good Food Awards, and the Northwest Chocolate Festival Awards. The hardest problem I have is making all the categories the same thing in all of these things. But, Throttle Tails, I've been able to do something like in another competition, in 2018, this is the European Bean to Bar Awards. It turns out that the country of Nicaragua won cocoa producing country. A chocolate manufacturer in Denmark won the most awards with their cocoa. And so you can start, if you're very, very careful. I mean, it would be really interesting to know, did anybody in the AVP Awards also win in the Academy of Chocolate and the Chocolate Awards for the same product in the same or different years? So I'm trying very, very hard to do this kind of analysis. I mean, I think Philippe and Jose, you would be interested in understanding within the AVPA what these trends are. But what I'm looking to do is how do I do this across multiple awards, multiple years? But another question, if I can, for this, and Throttle Tales, I hope that answers your question. I think it's really important.
I just want to add a light point. The quantities of producers from one country obviously depends on the quality of the producer and their pretension to be one of the best in the world. But it also depends on the quality of the communication of AVPA in the country, and on the quality of our intermediaries to inform the local transformer, the local producer, to take part in the competition. I take the example of Peru. Peru is a fantastic country. They have beautiful producers. There is an impressive trend towards quality and small local companies becoming a producer of high quality chocolate. But you have also a fantastic commercial organization from Peru who is able to inform the local producer and to help them to send their sample in Paris. On the other way, for instance, Brazil, we don't speak Portuguese. We are more Spanish-minded than Portuguese-minded, and we have difficulties to get into the Brazilian chocolate community. That's it. That's,
well, I would be happy to introduce you to the organizers of the Associação Bindobar Brazil, and perhaps they could help you with the introductions to Brazilian fabulous Brazilian makers, just world class. So I would be happy to do that after the fact. But what I do want to do is we have a couple of more comments and questions. The next one is from Throttle Tales, says, what would you say for producers who want to enter but don't dare for the moment? Well, that's an interesting.
Yeah, fine.
They are right. But the first point is that we just inform the community of the winners. We never say to the one who could not get a medal who were there. We may have a direct contact with them. We may discuss with them why the jury rejected their chocolate, but it will never be a public information. So don't be shy.
If I can, if I can, I'm sorry. There's a little bit of delay in the audio. So I am involved in a number of competitions, right, as a judge, in which one of the key aspects of what we're doing, I mean, more important than giving a score, the number one thing we're looking to do is to provide feedback, right?
Exactly.
Which was going to improve the quality of the product that's being produced, right? And so I would say to anybody who is interested in joining the competition that if you are, one of the hardest things, if you are a small producer in a country that's outside of Europe, right, which almost all, or outside North America, right, which most of you are.
A beautiful example we have last week. Last week we had the award ceremony for Cheese of the World, and there was a small Japanese woman, 50 years old more or less, and it was its fifth participation to the competition, and at last she won a gold medal, and she was here in Paris to receive a medal, and she was so proud. It was marvelous.
Okay. So we have a question. So there are a couple. If I can, I want to make sure that we get to the questions that are here. But we have one from Sakshi Singh. Don't know where this person is from. For listeners interested in tasting these chocolates, where can they start exploring?
They have to come to Paris, unfortunately.
Yes.
What we try to organize, we have a beautiful chocolate collection. We ask the winners to send us some samples, precisely to have a chocolateothèque, and we propose. We have in our head office in Paris the possibility to receive groups of chocolate amateurs and to inform them how to taste chocolate and what is chocolate.
Yeah.
But you have to
So if I can,
up to
yeah,
now.
if I can, on top of that, I mean, I'm looking at the list of winners from 2025, and I understand Chocolaterie Robert,
Yeah.
but there aren't a whole lot of names here that I know. I mean, you see, one of the reasons why this is interesting to me is I'm just exploring. I get the names of new makers and new producers, and I can
Yeah.
find about them. But I know this company, Warikao. I don't know most of the companies, and so it is really quite a challenge if you want to go. It's still yet another excuse, another reason to go to Paris, as if you needed another one. But Sakshi, it's really important that that if we support the competition and we support the winners, one of the things that I could speak to local distributors in the United States and say, here is a list of 10 companies that you might want to consider bringing in, right? I work on a something called the Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival, and I'm saying for the 2026 festival, can we work with an distributor, an importer, and say, can we bring some of these in? And I think that's the way you're going to have to go and think about tasting some of these, because they're small producers who are not making huge amounts of product, right? And are right now trying to export to the United States is insanely difficult for a small company to do. We have another question here, which is, so Encore Coffee Company. This is Mike King, who is at Encore Coffee in Kansas City, Missouri, here in the United States. He has a great line for Throttle Tails, which is, don't be afraid to compete. It can open doors and give you good feedback. So the only thing you have to fear is fear yourself. Maybe the way to think about entering the competition.
Yes, but it's very simple. And to answer this remark, AVPA is just a win-win association. Win for the members and win for the association. There's no other value. The value is win-win.
Excuse me, I have to leave, as I told you, Ray. Thank you very much, and waiting for a lot of producers next year to be part of the competition. And thank you for your for the information you share, Ray. I leave
Philippe,
you with
it is my pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Goodbye.
Ciao.
Goodbye,
Ciao.
Philippe. Goodbye.
Au revoir.
À bientôt.
À bientôt.
Well, so we are. And I will stay with you for roughly 10 minutes more, if you don't mind. And it will be a pleasure for me to discuss with you, talk with you for about the AVPA.
So before we go there, you say there's one more question.
Yes.
And this is from Banu Pratap Solanki. Again, I don't know where in the world they're coming from, but what advice would you give to chocolatiers or producers considering entering the next edition, the 2026 edition? What advice would you give to chocolate makers or chocolatiers?
The best advice I would say, be in contact with us, write us by mail, and be in contact. And you will be very welcome to AVPA, just to get information, just to know who we are. And we invite you to join us just for a first contact. This is the best advice for me.
So, and which I will say, Banu, you can go to the AVPA website, click on the contests, and then it's chocolate processed at origins, and you can see what the registration form and the registration process is, right? And there's also contact information. So you can give an email and you can say, I would like to enter. Please tell me what it is that I need to do.
Yes.
Can you tell us, Jose, what is the deadline for entering the 2026? Because even though the awards were given in November, or the awards announcement was in November, you judge the competition in what, April and May or something like that?
Something like that. So be hurry. Do it in a hurry. Don't wait.
Okay. Don't wait. So yes, I mean, that's the number one thing that I would say about this is be in contact soon and figure out what the requirements are so that you can make sure that your samples are delivered on time, that the organization also includes, as a part of the information they provide you, how to generate a pro forma invoice so that you can get through French customs, right? And how to organize your sample shipment. There's a lot of information on this page that you can download and you can use to help you understand how to make sure that when you do enter, that you're not going to run into any customs bureaucracy, because I think that's really, really important as well. Jose, you're brand new as the vice president, a week, right? But you have a long association with Philippe as well as with the competition. So can you tell me, just from your perspective, right, and your background in your history, and we're going to end with this, why you think this is such a valuable opportunity for chocolate makers and chocolatiers who are located in producing countries to help them understand if their product is commercially viable outside the country where they're living in?
Because I think that we're living a new time, and a new time is coming that all over the world, people will seek for quality. And maybe they need some help from associations like our association to bring them in highlight for quality. Quality is and will be, I think, the most important thing in a few years coming, because about globalization, you know what was globalization? I think is maybe no more a big globalization, or the real globalization will be globalization for quality, not only for companies, but from small producers, unknown producers all around the world. And they want to be known, and want to be known why? Because they do quality. This is important. It's because it's a human being.
Thank you for that. And we do have...
And I think it's important for our children too, for our children, for our youngs, to show them and to teach them what quality is, what taste is, what flavor is. Flavor, taste, quality for our young people is very important. They are used to just to eat a globalized food, and please teach them that's another food which is possible, sharing in good company with friends or family, quality, taste, flavor.
So if I can sort of put it together, chocolate is unique in the sense that it's made from the seeds of a fruit. It's made from cocoa seeds, cocoa beans. And we directly consume coffee beans. So we take a bean, it is roasted, we grind it, we make coffee. I can transform a green coffee bean to a cup of coffee very, very quickly. The process of transforming a cocoa bean into chocolate is very indirect, right? And it is something that generally happens thousands of miles away. I personally think that if we want to solve a number of the challenges that we have in cocoa farms around the world and coffee farms, their needs, and within other foods, is we need to focus on the food that we actually consume, right? Rather than just focusing on the plight of poor cocoa farmers, which is important, that needs to be addressed. What we need to say is the best way to help improve the lives and livelihoods of cocoa farmers is by saying, I want to consume better chocolate, right? If I'm going to consume better chocolate, it means that I need better cocoa beans, and we're going to need to pay more for those beans. We need to make sure that the farmers are compensated properly. And this emphasis on chocolate rather than cocoa beans is, I think, a really important thing to consider. And if anybody watches this, whether you've been watching it live, or be watching it in the future, this is a comment from somebody at AVPA in Paris. We welcome all chocolate producers who want to participate. Feel free to contact us. And you can do that by going to the website And there is a form at the bottom of a page, and you can type your email address, and you can send a message, and you can say, oh my gosh, please let me know. There's also an Instagram account, as I recall, and I'm sure that there are other ways to connect with the AVPA. And with that, Jose, I want to thank you very much for being here today. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank everybody who participated, made a comment. I think I've got all of the real major questions that were asked. And I hope I got all of them answered for everybody as well. I'm just checking the list of things. And I want to say thank you. I hope to be in Paris this next October, November for the awards for the sixth competition. But then in leaving, what I also want to point out is that there is a post for today's episode on the Chocolate Life. And here is the post for today's episode. All right, here it is. So you can go to the Chocolate Life and you can follow along. And then there are links to watch the archived episode. You're watching it now, but there are links for people who might be coming in later. There's a link to the AVPA website, which is here. And then there's a link to the 2025. This is actually the 2025 winners link. And this is for the overall web page link. So you do have the resources that you can get to. And then finally, this episode of PodSaveChocolate, like every episode of PodSaveChocolate, is sponsored by the members. You can go here, you can click on the join link. There's always been a free membership tier. Let's unclose this. There's always been a free membership tier, but you can support the Chocolate Life for as little as $5 a month and just support the work we do here to keep PodSaveChocolate on the air. And Jose, just a last minute thing that you might want to end the episode with for you?
Chocolate is alchemy. From the seed to the chocolate is not chemical, is alchemy, like in the Middle Age. It's a real road for taste and flavor.
Gotcha. So in that respect, what we're doing is we're taking a base metal, cocoa beans, and we're transforming it into gold, chocolate. Yeah. I think that's a wonderful sentiment. And with that, I want to say thank you very much to everybody. And remember, if you're working with chocolate and you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. Ciao, everyone. Until the next time.
Bye-bye.